and welcome. I am Dr. Anil Joshi. Welcome you to my education series that is Learn Radiology with Dr. Anil Joshi. Today's topic is intravenous pyelography. As a first lecture, we are going to have a lot of theoretical aspects, so we are not going to have any PowerPoint or slides. This is going to be a purely a theoretical lectures, and this is part one. Part two will be seeing a lot of cases. We'll be analyzing them, and we'll be knowing how to read them, how to interpret them. Now coming to the introduction of the topic, that is IVU. IVU is a radiographic examination of urinary tract, including renal, parenchyma, callisis, pelvis, after intravenous injection of contrast. Intravenous pyelography or IVU both are synonymous and are used from time to time. The team of the term pyelography is reserved for retrograde studies visualizing only the collecting system. But in this study we conduct study of kidney, ureter as well as bladder. Now there has been a decline in the intravenous urogram as the time goes over last 10 years, and this is because of the development of newer techniques like CT scan and ultrasound, particularly ultrasound, because the ultrasound gives as well a good information about calculopathy, which is by and large a most common disease. The second diseases like neoplasm, a CT is preferred along with contrast than IVU. Second is the cost of examination. The cost of contrast is almost 1,500 with 5 to 6 films. The cost of IVU exceeds around 3 to 4,000. So it's a very significant amount, and it attributes to its reduction versus economical solution, that is of the ultrasound. Now adverse effect to contrast reactions, though are less and less, they need to be considered as one of the factor. Now coming to indications. Screening of entire urinary tract, especially in cases of hematuria or pyuria, is an important indication. In our area, the calculopathy or pain in abdomen suspected to have because of calculus, or when ultrasound is not conclusive, IVPs are performed and they are more indicated than otherwise. The disease of urinary collecting system and renal pelvis, like extrarenal pelvis versus pelvic-ureteric junction narrowing or obstruction, or ectopic kidneys, different functions of the both kidneys. Now, if we are suspecting two kidneys having different morphology, it may happen that we will need a IVU to assess whether structurally they are different and also functionally or otherwise. Then obstructive uropathy, as usual, is one of a very important indication, either calculus or otherwise. Then surgery of the urinary tract. If you are going to perform a surgery of any one side, the opposite kidney needs to be, or opposite kidney along with the urinary tract has to be normal, and it needs to be confirmed before operating to one side. In children, there may not be a direct indication pertaining to the urinary tract, but there is a group of anomalies called as the Warder group, where we are finding anomaly at one place and want to rule out whether the renal involvement is there or not. Second are the malformations of the urinary tract, maybe polycystic kidney or maybe PU's junction obstruction or otherwise. Neurological disorders affecting urinary system are usually spinal dysraphism or a neoplasm suspected in the pelvis. Now, endorectal abnormalities are one of the indication to investigate a lower urinary tract, particularly bladder, with the help of MCU to know whether there is a reflux or not. IVU is indicated, but more than that, informative will be MCUs and other investigations. Then history of recurrent urinary tract is one of the indications for IVU. As the indication, there are certain contraindications also. Now, one of the most important contraindication is raised blood urea and creatinine. Then there is low output. Then severe anaphylaxis or contrasting reactions which were in earlier studies reported. Then generalized allergic manifestations if they are in earlier studies, or if they are without the drugs also, if they are suspected, it should be contraindicated. Pregnancy, as usual, is because of the exercise, and diabetes is a relative contraindication. In assessing any urinary tract, let us start from the kidneys. One of the most important things is to assess the renal cortex. Second are the callaceal system. Third is the pelvis. Fourth is the ureter. And then let's go down to the bladder and urethra. So there are different techniques applied to know different pathologies of whether it is a pathology of cortex or whether it is a pathology of the pelvis, and different techniques are applied in different suspected clinical conditions. Preparation of patient is one of the most important thing. Before taking patients for IVP, patient needs to be asked following questions. Ask patient with history of diabetes mellitus, then pheochromocytoma, renal diseases, allergy to any known drugs, or whether patient has got manifestations where the allergens are not known. Then fasting is essential for 4 to 5 hours. This is mainly to prevent vomiting which occurs on the table. Dehydration of patient was a earlier thought, because it was thought if that there is a dehydration, then there will be better concentration of the contrast because of reabsorption of the water. But however, nowadays with the introduction of non-ionic contrast, there is not much importance given to the fasting. Now, bowel preparation is one of the most important thing. Bowel preparation has to be good, because if bowel preparation is not good, we cannot see the kidneys. However, there are certain conditions where the bowel preparations are difficult to obtain, like in small children, especially infants who cry because of the pulling or because of the injection or because of the different atmosphere, and once they cry, they go for a orophagy. However, here we use a simple technique of giving some aerated drink to the children so that the stomach will get distended and we can visualize kidneys. Any radiology department can perform IVU. Not much great specialist equipments are required. By and large, 500 mA and above machines are preferred. However, any machines above 300 are sufficient. Then abdominal compression is important, but there are conditions when patient cannot tolerate abdominal compression, maybe because of the pain. In that condition, the abdominal compression are not given. Then equipment for intravenous installations. These are the 50 ml syringe, Jelcos, then normal saline to flush the needles after the contrast injections. I have already made one of the lecture series over the contrast and its reactions and how to take precautions to prevent or at least to reduce this reaction, how to anticipate them, and which drugs to keep ready. So it is very important to keep a drug tray ready along with the equipment like intubation facility, or to start a IV line immediately and to give patient oxygen, which is a first step and first thing we have to do when any reaction occurs. So all these things needs to be ready along with the team with proper information to them and the machines. Machines has to be kept tried so that at the 12th hour there will not be any failures, especially when you have to adjust a technical factor like kV and MA. Now we have got different type of contrast like ionic contrast and non-ionic contrast. Earlier, ionic contrasts were the only contrast used for IVP and there was no other substitute. But nowadays we have got a choice between ionic and non-ionic, and at most of the places now ionic contrast is replaced by non-ionic due to its safety margins. So undoubtedly we use in our center, maybe since last 20 years, only non-ionic contrast. At the onset, we have to go for a test dose. Now, test dose in these patients sometimes are given intramuscular, sometimes a small dose of intravenous because the uh, allergies or the reaction to the drug are not significant nowadays. Ideally, a test dose has to be given subcut, but at most of the center, a IV dose of small contrast is given as a test dose and it is preceded by the injection. It is basically because of the safety of the contrast, but technically, and if somebody want to be accurate, subcut is the best way to give a test dose. Now, after the test dose is given, the patient is positioned properly on the table, compression device is kept ready, tube is centered properly, cassette is placed, and an injection is started. Injection should not take more than 3 to 4 minutes routinely. However, there are certain indications where we have to use bolus, particularly when we are doing with young hypertensive, that is the rapid sequence. So, rapid sequence IVP done for perfusion studies and in case of suspected renal arterial stenosis. Now, large dose of contrast was earlier given and that was called as the high dose of the perfusion IVP is practically given up nowadays and it is not done since we have got better methods available if renal functions are deteriorated and if urine volume is less. In that condition, we can go for other investigation rather than going for perfusion or high contrast or high dose of intravenous injections. Now, once patient is placed in supine, once test dose is given, once the equipments are checked, once the test dose is given, once the contrast is given, we apply a compression. Compression is applied usually between 5 minutes to 15 minutes. The role of compression is to compress ureter at mid-ureter level so that pelvic LHL system fills nicely, and once we release the compression, the urine gushes down and we'll get a good visualization of lower ureters. That is the best achieved with the compression. Now the interesting fact is how a compression given over the anterior abdominal wall is effective towards ureter which are at retroperitoneal region. Now here it is important fact. Once the compression is given, we have to go slowly so that the bubbles start moving away from the compression and the compression is more effective over the ureter. And this compression needs to be released after 15 minutes. However, sometimes patient do have a pain. In that condition, the compression should be either less or should be avoided. By and large, at after the injection first film, then at the end of 5 minutes second film, then the compression, then with compression 15 minutes, with the release of compression on the 20 minutes are the routine sequence and 25 minutes if required. Then patient is asked to void and taken the subsequent films. But it is very important to say that IVP do not have a fixed sequence. Lot of time we find sequence is changed, the timings are also changed. Now what we see in Scout film, The most important thing we see in the Scout film are the calculi. Second are the masses. Third are the intestinal abnormalities. Fourth are the calcification. Then are the foreign bodies. These are things which must be checked when we take a plain X-ray and we go for the interpretation of IVP. If we are going for rapid sequence, it is important to take at least 3 to 4 film at the end of 2 minutes. So it has to be really a rapid sequence. However, if we are going for a routine sequence, at the end of 1 minute, whatever film we take, we have to check the opacification of both the kidneys. It is called as a nephrogram. Nephrogram should be homogeneous, equal. It gives kidney outline normal and is most important when we do not see kidney outline over the plain study. So it is essential when plain study do not show kidney outline, and also essential when we are suspecting a vascular abnormality like renal artery stenosis. There will be a difference in the perfusion of both the kidneys. Following that, at the end of 5th minute, we get a pyelogram. Pyelogram is the presence of contrast in the collection system, pelvis and ureter. So pyelogram essentially gives you idea about the pelvic collection system and collecting system as well as renal functioning. It is also important, both the finding, nephrogram and pyelogram are also important in assessment of renal vein when we are going for a neoplastic or renal neoplasm studies. In that case, these two sequences are extremely important. That gives us a fairly good idea about the perfusion and about the renal vein. Now, after pyelogram, we come down to see the ureters. There are certain other indications when the compression is contraindicated. That is when we are dealing with a traumatic patient, number 1. Number 2, when there are large abdominal masses. Number 3, when there is a suspicion pheochromocytoma, and after the surgery. These are the conditions when the contrast should be administered without compression. Now, a 15-minute film must give us a good idea about the ureter, then ureteric codes, ureteric patterns, and ureteric diameter, that is the caliber. This also gives us good idea about the ureterovesical junction and whether there is any dilated segment or not. Many times entire ureter is not seen, and that is because of the peristalsis, and it is absolutely a normal finding and should not be considered as abnormal. The 30-minute film are essentially meant for assessment of the bladder as well as the columnization on either side. If both are not there, if columnization is not there, if the calyces are emptying properly, if pelvis is emptying properly, if ureter is not dilated, it is not having stasis, then we can say that urinary tract do not have any obstructive uropathy. Often post-word film is required. Now, in which case you get post-word film? Particularly when there is bladder outlet obstruction suspected. So, if you suspect bladder outlet obstruction, a post-word film has to be taken to know whether there is any residue or not. Then second is the bladder mucosa appreciation. A full bladder and empty bladder both are required for interpretation of bladder mucosa. Third are the diverticuli. There's an interesting fact about the diverticuli. When a bladder fills, diverticuli also fills. It also distends. But the size of diverticuli when bladder empties gets filled up because it fills with the bladder. When bladder contracts for voiding, diverticuli is filled. So any diverticuli, if communicating or not, if you want to know, you must take a post-void film. And especially bladder outlet obstruction or VOR is there, then post-void film is essential. Often in over-distended bladder, we do not see uretrovesical junction properly, and in that case again a post-op film is must essential. Now, is it that all the time we need a supine film? No. One of the indications for prone film is pelvic-ureteric junction narrowing. If we are seeing large extrarenal pelvis filled with a contrast, want to know whether it is abnormal or that is pelvic-ureteric junction narrowing, extrarenal large pelvis or PU obstruction. First is to go for a prone film. So that is the first thing we should do. If it empties, fine. If it doesn't empties, then there is another technique called as Lasix overload. It is true that the contrast are diuretic. So because of their property, they produce more urine. But also, if we need to know whether there is pelvic ureteric junction narrowing, we have to give intravenous bolus of Lasix, that is diuretic, to know whether obstruction is true or not. Then oblique projections are usually taken because of the ureteric visualization, number one, and number two, if pelvis, renal pelvis is sometimes distorted, kidneys are mal-rotated, in that cases oblique gives us a best idea. Is it that anytime we need an erect film? Erect film is only needed when you are expecting a mobile kidneys. There are diseases where the kidneys are mobile. So the position of kidney in supine and erect gives you whether there is a mobility or not. Number two, if you want to see a layering or a contrast level, then in either abscess or cyst, then you go for an erect film. So these are the additional films we take. As per the requirement, there is no standard rule for that. A question is often asked, do IVP ends at the end of 25 minutes to 30 minutes? The answer is no. IVP ends when both the kidneys empties the dye within them. It may happen that if there is a distal obstruction, one of the kidney will not be functioning as good as the other kidney. In that condition, we have to go for a delayed film. Delayed film we have to take till there is opacification of opposite kidney and opacification of pelvic calyceal system, and if there is a calculus, it should press it till the calculus. So that is the essential thing when we go for a delayed film. Now, is there any complication of this process? The answer is yes. Most of the complications are related to the contrast or dye, but there are certain complications which are not indicated to dye, especially if the compression is applied vigorously, number one. If patient has already got diseases like pheochromocytoma, it can increase the blood pressure. Then if patient has got thyrotoxicosis, it can precipitate it. Otherwise, usually what patient get is some nausea, some vomiting, some urticarial rashes, and mild aches. Laryngeal edema is a severe reaction and needs to be promptly treated. We are not going to go detail of this reaction pattern in this series because there is already one lecture covered extensively types of reaction and how to treat them. There are two parts of the series and they are extensively covered. They can be referred back for these topics. Once the procedure over, once the patient is explained that almost work is over, our work is not over. We have to explain the patient what can happen in delay. Observation up to 6 hours is really required. Though the reaction which come late are not as severe as the immediate reactions, however, still they should be observed. One of the important is the skin rashes. Second is the vasovagal. Patient may drop blood pressure and patient may go in dehydration. That is because of two things, because of the vomiting, because of diuretic of the drug, and because patient may be drinking less water. So these are the precautions we must tell patients and we should take care. And if we take proper care, I think there will not be any much significant serious after procedural reactions. But a proper understanding of the dye, that is the contrast, and proper understanding of its late reactions has to be kept in mind and explained to the patient, and he has to be kept in observations. Now there are two things. One thing is the advantage and second is the disadvantage. Now what is the advantage of this procedure? It's a easily available, can be done anywhere. However, contrast do not give much serious reactions, so safely you can perform the procedure. The diagnosis is given really quickly. You don't need any delay, any processing time. So when you are taking the film, practically you know the diagnosis. The kidney function can be well assessed, calculopathy can be well confirmed. In case of differential diagnosis, it can give a fair good idea whether urinary tract is involved or not. In case if you want to do surgery for one side, the opposite side has to be normal, and this test proves it. So in spite of so many alternative tests, in spite of so many economical newer techniques available, still today, as far as kidney functions are concerned, IVP stands as a gold standard. Now there are many disadvantages. The majority disadvantage is the cost. It is a costly examination and requires more cost because of the high cost of a drug. And secondly, it requires 4 to 5 X-rays. Minimum 4 to 5. Sometimes we have to take 7 or 8 X-rays, also depending on the indication. It needs a IV contrast. So all the disadvantages of IV, that is a thrombophlebitis, then extravasation of contrast, then contrast related reactions, they are going to be bound with it. Then multiple delayed films as such increases the total exposure, that is X-ray exposure of the patients. So that has to be considered, and it is not always possible, especially in patients who has got aerophagy, especially small children. That is how we confirm is we take a scout film. If in scout film, if we see a lot of gas, we try to get rid of it. If it is slightly older child, we try to give laxatives, or if not, sometime with effervescent liquids like aerated drinks like orange or something which children enjoy, and stomach distance, and that gives us visualization of kidney within the gas filled stomach. So these are some tricks we can make in spite when there are disadvantages. This was the part 1. We are going to see part 2 shortly. Part 1 was mainly a theoretical, so we have not seen many of the X-ray images and illustrations. In part 2 is going to be totally X-ray film readings and IVP different conditions and different indication whatever we are seeing, maybe like congenital anomalies or obstructive uropathies or neoplasm, or we are going to see, then we are going to see a second part of the same series. Till now I have told you in fairly extensively the details how IVP is done. There are a lot of centers which has got their own methods and the test is modified in different ways. Please note, radiology is a continuous process. You'll have to keep learning. It's a learning process which never stops. It is not a race which you have to run and win, but you have to gain knowledge. You have to be beneficial to the patient by doing your best and acquiring good knowledge. So, with this, I, Dr. Anil Joshi, log off till we meet next time. Thank you.